Welcome back to the workbench. Well, several months ago I made a video about a set of South Eastern and Chatham Railway cattle vans that I made for a friend of mine. I'll put a picture of them up on the screen. Anyway, since then I've been busily drawing other vans for no particular reason other than I'll need them one day at Bexhill West, and I thought it would be fun. And it's proved to be quite an absorbing little additional hobby. I've designed lots of them now. Anyway, some of these were on display at a recent exhibition and someone said, am I going to sell them? So I thought, well, maybe, but I ought to give some thought to the packaging. And that's where today's video comes in. In my last video, in which I reviewed the Creality Falcon 2 Laser Engraver, Stefan of Steph's Engineering left a note in the comments and said that I should recommend boxes.py as a wonderful resource for creating laser cuttable files for all sorts of different types of boxes. Now, given that I'd used exactly the same website to create the designs for these boxes, I thought, well, let's chuck a quick sort of bonus video in where I show you how that was done. There you go, you can see one of my little wagons. I've still got a few things to sort out, the sprung buffers for example, but we're getting there. Anyway, that is a South Eastern and Chatham Railway Express goods brake van. So let's get on with it and have a look at just how easy it is to create boxes like these using the boxes.py website. So to make these boxes, we head on over to Google and type in boxes.py, and that will bring up as our top search term the boxes.py website. So we can click on that and that will take us to the home page of the site. And scrolling down, you'll see there's a wide variety of different types of boxes that this software will automatically generate files for, suitable for your laser cutter. And there's every kind of box you could possibly imagine. And what's great about these boxes is they've been designed to be parametric. And by that I mean we can enter values for the different dimensions and various parameters on the box, and it will generate the files for us. So in this case I'm going to create a box that's 80mm long, 40mm wide and 50mm high. Now we've got all sorts of settings that we might need to change. So for example here I'm adjusting the play between the two components of the box, how nicely they'll slide together. We could choose any type of file output that we like. I'm going to choose DXF because I'm going to do a little bit of CAD work on this when I'm done. Now we can set in a burn setting or a kerf adjustment. I find that with a Creality machine 0.1 is just fine. Now we've got some corner options. I would suggest either going with the loop or the, I think it's called reverse arc. So I'm into my CAD software. This is quite an ancient looking piece of software. This is what I use in my job as a school teacher. I love it. I prefer this to AutoCAD. So there we go. I've imported the file and hopefully you could see we've got all the parts there ready to cut out. Now what I'm going to do is set the line width to be fine because it comes out with a default thickness of about 0.5 of a millimetre. I'm just going to delete this piece of text. And there you go, there's all the parts. Now you'll see at the bottom there's a little calibration box. This should be 100mm long. I'm just using the dimension tool and you can see yes it is 100mm. So we could cut that rectangle first, measure it with the measure the final outcome with the laser cutter, and if necessary adjust it. Anyway, I'm going to go back into boxes.py. I'm going to change the height of the inner section of the box to 25mm. That way I will be able to see most of the wagon when I lift the lid off. And I'll just open up a new screen and import that file. So you'll see it look very similar to the one before, but the lower pieces of the box at the bottom of that image that we could see on the screen there, they're now 25mm high. I'm just going to do a quick calibration check. Now this is the CAD software that I use. Of course we could use any software. This could be done in Inkscape or Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator or whatever you're comfortable with. Now what I'm going to do here is produce a little cutout in one side so that my fingers can reach down and grab the wagon when I want to take it out of the box. So what I'm doing is using some attach tools to set a vertical center line in the side of this piece. With that done, I'm going to offset that line on both sides, and I'm going to create another offset from the top. I didn't like the size of that, so I've just changed it. There we go, that's better. And I'm now selecting the line tool. I'm setting this to attach to the intersection of these lines that I've just added. You'll see what I'm doing here. So I've drawn a line. I'm now going to use the mirror tool. Now this isn't really a tutorial showing you how to do it. I just thought I'd whiz through this quickly. It will depend on whatever software you choose to use, but if you want to copy this, but you get the idea. Now I'm just going to drop in some fillet radiuses, and that will be the side panel for my box, or the lower side of the box. So having created that box side, I'm now selecting all of the vectors within that box, and I'm grouping them, and I've done that by pressing Ctrl G on my keyboard. I'll delete the second side of the box and then copy that one across. There we go, and there's our box. Now this box is going to be no good without a label of some description, so using the text tool, I'm just going to throw some text down. So this is a South Eastern Railway Express goods brake van. Select my favourite typeface, which is what I use for everything on the channel, Geometric 231. I'll tell you one day why I use that font. Top marks to anyone who can guess. Okay, so I've set that to be green, and what I'm going to do is turn the fill off, so it'll just give me the outline. Clearly that's too big, so we need to reduce it in size. Probably about 5mm will do, I should think. Again, the exact method that you would use here would depend on what software you're using. There'd be probably very few people who are using this exact same piece of software that I'm using here, but like I say, the principles are exactly the same if you're using Inkscape, for example, which is a free download. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put my website name on, makeitminiature.co.uk. Oops, that's too big. Let's make it a bit smaller. About 3.5mm height. It's probably going to be too small now. Yeah, that's a bit mean. Let's make it a bit bigger. 4mm. That'll do. Get it roughly centered. Now these panels here are what's effectively the lid of the box, and they are upside down relative to how they will be assembled into the box. So what I'm going to do is just drag a little box around these and flip them over so they're now the right way up. I think these boxes would be nice with a bit of artwork. So this is the 3D CAD model of the wagon that we're making a box for. So again, depending on what piece of CAD software you use will determine the exact process, but here I've just selected a side-on view, and I'm going to save this as a .dxf file so that I can bring that into my CAD software and play around with it. So I'm going to tell it I want to export that view. Wait a moment whilst it thinks about it. There we go, that's the image I want. So now I can come back into my CAD software and import that image, find out where I've saved it. There we go. what's quite nice is that image has come in, it's 100% full size, so that's you know, perfectly suits the box. So I'm going to change the colour of the image to red, and now we could copy that and we'll stick one on the other side as well. Now what I'm doing here is using some align tools within this piece of software. All software has it, and I'm just lining these up so they're both at the same height. What I'll do is I'll centre this one in its sort of box panel, and I'll do the same here. So I'm just choosing the centre line of that drawing of the wagon and the bottom line of the box. There we go, so that's now perfectly centred. I ought to do the text as well. Okay, so whilst we're at it, let's put an image on each end of the box. So I could come back to my 3D CAD, and what I'm going to do is export this view just as I did before as a .dxf file. So this is the guard's end with the kind of like ship's steering wheel that operates the brake. You can just see it through the window. There we go. And whilst we're here, we might as well do the other end. I don't know what we call the other end, the van end, I suppose. So again, a .dxf file. We'll call it van end. Perfect. So we go back to the CAD software now, and we can import those two images. I'll do it exactly the same way as I did previously. So just import, find the image we want. Now this will import as a black line colour. It looks sort of a pinky purple colour. That's just because it's showing me it's been selected. So if I select the other one, I can now line those up so they're perfectly aligned. And centered on that end panel. And let's bring in the van end now. Again, I'll use the align tools just to get this absolutely perfectly centered, because things like that bug me. There we go. Now of course this side view is now facing the wrong way, so let's flip that one round so that when this box is assembled it kind of makes some sense. There we go, and I think that's pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is make a little raised sort of ridge in the bottom of the box that will sit kind of in lieu of rails, and the wheels will sit with their back-to-back measurements sort of sliding over this piece of material that I'm going to add on. So because I'm in P4, I've set this to 17.5mm wide. I can see it needs to be 80.2mm long, but what I'm going to do is draw a little box. We'll make it 80mm long and 17.5 wide. There we go. So we've got an extra piece that I can now cut out with the rest of those files, and that will stick onto the base of the box between those two little red lines. Whilst we're at it, we'll put a name label so when the lid is removed I know what goes where. And these red lines, I'm just going to shorten them. There we go, so that's the area onto which that little extra rectangle is going to go. Now I've just noticed I haven't recoloured these end views, so let's change those to red. Bingo. There we go, good job, ready to cut. So it's into Lightburn now, and first thing I'm going to do is select the Creality Falcon 2, and we can open up that file which I've previously saved. Where have I saved it? Can't remember what I called it. Oh, there we go. So that file is now ready to cut. Now what we want to do is tell the machine the correct order in which we want to cut. Now, I can see I've got some blue lines here, and that extra rectangle I drew was in black, so I'm going to change that to blue. And I want the final cut to be the very last job, so I can select it and then with these arrows drag the blue line to the bottom. That's now pretty much ready to cut. Zoom in, just double check it. We can send that to the laser cutter. So I've had this Creality Falcon 2 now for about 4 weeks, and in that time I think I've probably given it more use than most people give it in a year. For example, I took it into the school where I work and had it running, making dozens and dozens, hundreds maybe, of Christmas decorations. Anyway, in that time it's worked faultlessly. I'm really impressed with it. I'm really pleased with how cleanly it cuts, and a great advantage with it over, say, a CO2 laser is because the diodes are mounted directly above the lens, there aren't lots of mirrors to keep finely adjusted and clean, so it really is just set it up, use it. Now in this shot here you'll see loads of smoke, and for this video I've not been operating it in its smoke hood just so that I could get the camera in to show it, but I've actually got it set on the table of my big laser cutter, and I'm using the extraction system from that to pull this smoke away. But without doubt the sort of smoke hood option that Creality provide is really worth investing in because it works really well. Anyway, there we go, it doesn't take long and all the bits are cut out. And here it is, the finished box. You can see it's nicely engraved all round. Nice label on the top. And just like the example I showed you earlier, it slides apart to reveal the wagon. And you can see why I've made these cutouts in the side, and it makes it easier to whip the model up and take it out. Anyway, that got me thinking that there's a potential risk here. If you had a particularly heavy wagon in there or you were very clumsy, you could pick this up and the bottom might just accidentally drop out. So it's not really a problem for what I was thinking of, because I was going to put a card sleeve around these, but I did think maybe we could do something to secure against that. And so there's a Mark II version. Here, I've got some little thumb grips on the side, and it opens up and reveals some magnets in the side here, and also in the lid, and that magnetically holds together quite nicely. That takes quite a bit of force to open up. So there we go, another little storage box for another wagon. So there we go, there's another little video showing something quite useful that could be done using that Creality machine. Now this boxes.py website's really useful. I've used the website here to create these boxes, but these boxes could be the armatures for you know, scale model buildings or something like that. So for example, this signal box could have been envisaged I should say, as a sort of box type structure like that with some cladding materials applied to it. Lots of potential there, and a really useful website, well worth checking out. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Next time we'll be back probably with some more plug track stuff, and look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Cheerio.